Hey, this is Christian Roldan,
and Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
and you're listening to
This is Nos Audietis. This episode of Nos Audietis is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Audietis since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
Save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle. And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nico Lodero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is going to
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Porter says, cheated.
You want to win? This is the Seattle Sounders, bro.
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Audietis. I am Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today is Sam Minton of the Blazing Musket, which covers the New England Revolution. They are descended from the Bent Musket, which you may remember from its SB Nation days. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremiah. It's an honor. Obviously, always good to catch up with the former SB Nation colleague and big boss. But
Yeah.
excited for this matchup, man. We don't get these Western Conference matchups, especially the Seattles and the Portlands, as much as we're used to here in New England. So excited to see it coming.
I'm racking my brain. What was it, like 2015, the last time the Revs were in Seattle? It's been a long time, right?
Yeah, especially a regular season game. I think there might have been like a preseason game in the mix there earlier, because for some reason I'm remembering Bruce possibly being there, but I also just could be misremembering that with all the nonsense that was.
I know that Sounders have been to New England since then,
Yeah.
but the game that is in my mind is when Dempsey walked that shot into the goal. It was a really nice exchange between him, Oba, and Marco Papa, and Dempsey basically walked a shot into the goal. But I'm pretty sure it was 2015. But anyway, thank you, Sam, for joining me. Let's just jump right into it. Let's start with every Sounders fan's favorite subject, and that is Caleb Porter. What's it been like? What's the Caleb Porter? You've already had some fun exchanges with Caleb this year.
Yeah, I mean, very fun exchanges. I dared ask about Dave Romney and got a not so nice response back, and wondered if my questions were directly from the fans on Twitter. Very fun time, but Dave Romney, shout out to him, getting a run of starts lately. Had to get rotated out recently against in the midweek match, but wouldn't be surprised if he gets back in the starting lineup. But it's been interesting. Caleb definitely has much different philosophy in terms of soccer when it comes to Bruce Arena. With Bruce, it was very free flowing and just kind of go do stuff, as he was known to say. But with Caleb, there's a structure. He wants to kind of build out the back, possession heavy game, and he has a style of play he wants his players to play. And it seemed like it took the Revolution a lot of time to adjust to that style of play. It was, again, much different. But now they seem to really be rolling. They're on a hot streak. They have quite a hole to dig themselves out of. I think they've won the last 5 of 6, and they're still not in a playoff position. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go against Seattle. Obviously, there's going to be the Caleb Porter aspect, the Arriaga aspect, but expecting a good match, even though they're playing their third game in 7 days.
Yeah, so Caleb Porter, if the funniest thing about that hire to me was I always sort of saw him and Bruce as being almost direct rivals. Like, they didn't seem to like each other. They didn't seem to, or at least Bruce didn't seem to like Caleb. I don't know. Caleb maybe like Bruce more. I don't know, without getting all into that. But what from your perspective, what was the philosophy behind hiring Caleb?
Yeah, I think for sure it was the fact that he has won MLS Cups, with the Crew and with the Timbers, and that this roster, especially at the beginning of the season, the expectation was could possibly contend for an MLS Cup. You have Carlos Heel
Yeah.
not getting any younger, and you were able to bring in some exciting VPs in the likes of Thomas Shankali. Obviously, Giacomo Vrioni hasn't exactly panned out, but overall, looking at the roster, a lot of similarities from that 2023 season when the Revs, before the whole entire Bruce Arena saga, were I believe second place in the Eastern Conference, and then the rest is history as we now know it. So it really seemed like he was brought in to be a contender, someone who can bring this team to that promised land of winning an MLS Cup, which for the Revolution is a long time coming, and it seems like the expectations have changed drastically with the start. And Caleb's made some comments that at the beginning when he was brought in, the roster was the main reason that I came here, but now we have to make some changes. We need to bring in some pieces because we're missing some players who can have that quality and make you an MLS Cup contender. So I really think he was brought in to be a contender, and if you're just looking at that in a vacuum, so far this season has been a failure.
Yeah, so you go back to 2021, New England Revolution set the record for points in a season. Set back in 2022, presumably just mainly for injuries, but they were rolling in 2023 before the whole Bruce Arena saga sort of hit the fan. Has the organization recovered from that yet? Is that now something that feels safely in the rearview mirror?
I would definitely say it's in the rear view mirror, but I do think it does pop up in a sense. Like I remember when that kicking it interview came out with Bruce Arena, that was all Revolution fans were talking about, and I think even a lot of people are like, oh, we're probably not going to hear about this. And you get a little bit, but I think there's still that wanting to know. Everyone, until it comes out, will want to know what happened. Bruce, obviously a big figure in the U.S. soccer landscape. So as much as it is in the rearview mirror, everyone wants to kind of move on. I do think there's an aspect of it, it'll be what if he was still here, will the Revolution, be a contender, be performthe better, and just wanting to know just the whole drama behind it. I mean, even outside of the sports landscape, if you're just a fan of drama and, the scandal, you want to know what happened. So as much as, definitely the organization will want it to be gone in the rearview mirror in the past, I think it's going to be staying there for a bit longer, especially if we get the Bruce Arena tell-all book one day.
Yeah. So just to remind people, at the time, sort of the story was the players didn't even really understand why Bruce had been moved along. Essentially, have you gotten a sense of whether or not the players have ever been filled in, or is that part of why the story still hasn't come out? Is that no one who, if it's not Bruce, if it's not the handful of front office staff, that just no one really knows the story at this point?
Yeah, I would say it probably still seems like no one really knows. I think, especially when Bruce really kind of alluded to it, that, when he's legally allowed to speak about it, he will speak about it. It just doesn't seem like it, especially, at the end of the season, talking to Omar Gonzalez. It was 7 minutes of great audio, just kind of detailing everything. And it was really eye-opening. And you just got the sense that players still don't know. They're still left in the dark, which is, again, there's the legality of it. At the end of the day, if you break it down, this is a workplace HR issue. Sure. You kind of understand it, but it is quite shocking that, the story hasn't come out, and the fact that a lot of players, I would say, still feel left in the dark.
Well, let's fast forward to this season, and it's been a pretty wild year, frankly. At one point, I don't know, 10, 15 games into the season, I remember Matt Doyle wrote a column about how the Revolution are not only on pace to have a bad season by their standard, but at that point, they were on pace to have one of the worst seasons in MLS history. Almost ever since then, they've been on a roll. Either they went on, I believe, a 5-game winning streak, right? And then they lost. They got kind of their teeth kicked in by the Crew, but then bounced right back and beat Atlanta United. is this team like what is the real revolution? I'm between those two teams, which seem diametrically in opposite directions.
I would probably say somewhere in the middle, as they would always say, is that team, because I don't think the Revolution in the beginning were exactly performing up to their level. I think you have a striker like Giacomo Vrioni who's really been able to come into form as of late. And it's been the big question, should the Revolution move off of him? I think, Tom Bogarts even alluded to it in his reporting. And he's just someone who has struggled to be consistent. And it almost happened against the Crew. He really struggled out in front of goal, but he was able to bounce back against Atlanta. Obviously strikers can't score in every game. If they could, that would be amazing, and they would be one of the best. But when you have a DP striker, as long as they can be consistent and be a consistent scoring threat, I think the team was going to be able to perform. And I think also too, Arriaga's been I would say a good inclusion. He's kind of, added some competition. Caleb Porter even alluded to it. He described Henry Kessler as, sieving to get back on the pitch. And it really seems like there's a good competition at center back. Dave Romney, when he was finally able to get called back in, performed really well. I would just say too, the thing that could, bring this team back down the level is injuries. This team is extremely hurt right now. Carlos Gil looks like he's going to miss the Seattle game. If he was able to miss any significant time, it doesn't seem like that. But if he was, that's a big blow. Someone who is going to miss significant time, Thomas Shankalai. You have guys like Dylan Barrero and Brandon Bai who are still recovering from some serious injuries. They're able to play, but it's a lot to be able to play 45 minutes, earn starts, and really come into their own. So I would say part of it is finally kind of getting used to Caleb Porter and his system. But part of it is the crucial aspect of, Giacomo Vrioni being able to be a consistent scorer. And obviously it is just a few games, but it seems like he has turned a corner. I guess the question, everyone hates it, but, time will tell if that's the case.
So the other big injury, you alluded to a rather long list of injuries that the Revolution are dealing with right now. Two players you didn't, or there was a few players, I guess, that you didn't mention, even with all those players you did list. But the one I think most people are curious about is what's the deal with Carlos Gil? Is he expected to play this week?
Yeah, so it sounded like he's not going to play. I believe he's asked by my colleague Seth McCumber. Caleb Porter was after the most recent match, and he described him as being doubtful and looking for Carlos to come back next week. You have someone like Ima Boateng, looks like he's going to miss a few weeks, and same with Mark Anthony Kaye. Seems like similar to Carlos, looking to get back next week. But his situation seems a little bit better. And then obviously, too, you have some other long-term injuries. A player like Nacho Gil, he's out. Youngster and Peyton Miller. I don't know if he's picked up a new injury. I think it is because it's a different body part. But he's picked up an injury as well, too. Henrik Ravas has returned from Euros play, but he seems to be the solid number 2 compared to entering the year as a starter. So the Revs are really banged up. They're going to have to, call upon some interesting names. A Revs 2 player who could make his MLS debut, Marcos Diaz, is interesting talent, and I'm excited to see him get the call up. But I think the Revolution would have listed in different circumstances.
Yeah. So generally speaking, it does seem like the Revolution are moving into their next phase of being. There was a lot. Has it actually been finalized, the new stadium, or is that still something that's in the?
Oh, that is still we are now government political red tape. If I remember correctly, it is in a committee and it has been stuck there for quite some time.
Okay.
So it's again, as Revolution fans say, they will not count their chickens before their hats before that shovel hits the dirt. There's progress, but I don't. It's still going to be a bit.
And what is your sense, though, in terms of the way the ownership is treating? This has been one of the big topics of discussion currently in Seattle, where there hasn't been a ton of investment into the roster lately, but it seems like the Revolution even though they have historically not been a high spending team, it does seem like recently there's been some real investment.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I would say definitely the fans, they definitely kind of have a similar aspect to, fans in Seattle, where a lot of the conversation is all right, you sold Matt Turner, Tajon Buchanan, George Petrovic. Where has that money been reinvested? You have a striker in Giacomo Vrioni, for the large part, has struggled as a DP. He's coming in the form now, but could you have used that money elsewhere? And the same kind of goes Thomas Shankalai. I think in the past that might have been a DP signing that might not have been made, but they have invested in the team. And it seems like the major question came, when Bruce Arena left is, all right, you lose this major face. Now are they going to continue to invest in the team? And I think they have been able to go out and get the moves. Caleb Porter kind of alluded to it. He said that the Revs were up against the salary cap in, the first transfer window. And, from the salary data and everything we've gotten with the roster profiles, it definitely seems to be the case. And I think the kind of we'll find out how the Revolution and ownership are going to invest in this upcoming transfer window. Caleb Porter has been vocal that they do need to go out and get some players, and they're starting to get some rumors out there in terms of players. Seems like there's a lot of investment in the Israeli league, and there could be some strikers and midfielders coming over from there. The Revolution have historically, especially recent history, looked at players in South America. So I think this summer transfer window will really show the improvement, and I think kind of the pushing over the line of the stadium will also prove that, because Gillette Stadium, is an asset, but I think if this team is going to, reach that next step, that next phase, they need to kind of get their own soccer-specific stadium and get away from that turf.
Yeah, and so going beyond the Revs, what's we've been. It's been interesting. The Seattle is one of the hosts of the World Cup. So is Boston, New England. What's been I've been surprised here at how little we've actually heard about it in the last year or two. What's the situation in New England?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We've basically only really gotten the fact that there's going to, I believe, for some portion of the MLS season, the Revs are going to have grass.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, in terms of kind of more logistical, kind of plant and preparation sides of it, there's not really a whole lot. I believe there's a report out there in Seattle kind of talking about the pausing of games, because usually you would have major sports games paused, and especially here in FIFA Boston, when it's actually in Foxborough, there's the question of, well, where's it going to be based out of, and who could be affected from that? Obviously Red Sox, I believe you could have, maybe the Celtics involved in it during the planning. But I would say similar to, the situation in Seattle, there's really not a lot of information. I think a lot of fans are really concerned about, hey, what's going to be with the playing surface, and can the Revs play on grass? Because especially looking at the amount of ACL injuries and muscle injuries this team has had, and with the complaints about turf, there's a lot of dots being connected there, and it seems like they would love people would love to have grass come fully, as a lot of people would. So again, I would say there's not really a lot of information, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this all comes together.
Yeah, it definitely will. It sounds like you guys are pretty much in the same boat. So finally, the other thing I wanted to just talk to you about real quickly, you guys left, or I don't know, maybe you're kind of we don't have to get into what happened exactly at SB Nation, but you guys are now independent. How is that going? You're on Substack. I love catching up with folks and sort of hearing their experiences and what and informing people how the sort of independent media landscape is shaping up around MLS.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been amazing. Obviously, the support that we got in that really tough moment was great. Even people from the Revolution reaching out, it's absolutely amazing, and just kind of seeing the fan support. There's one story that sticks out. We had people saying that they kind of fell in love with the Revs because of the bent musket, and we now have a writer who pretty much is writing for us, and he covers Hartford Athletic as well as during his day job works for Rhode Island FC, and part of his reason for the love of the game is from the bent musket, which obviously I came on later, but Steve Stower and Seth McCumber and everyone who came before me there just did such an amazing job, and especially in the likes of Seth continues to do an amazing job. But for us, it provided us an opportunity to kind of grow instead of just covering the Revs, Revolution 2. We now pretty much cover soccer in all of New England. We cover Hartford Athletic, Rhode Island FC. We cover the Vermont Green and some other USL League 2 Northeast Division teams. Obviously, there's the Portland Hearts of Pines coming. We're excited to cover them, and WSL Boston. So it's really been amazing, the support and just the opportunity to grow. And obviously, it's been great to cover the Revolution, and that's our bread and butter. But to become more than that, become a real home for New England soccer has been amazing.
Well, awesome. It's always good to hear these stories and to know that there is a life after SB Nation for a lot of these sites, and for a lot of these sites, even more encouragingly, it's been surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, it's been better in a lot of cases. I think there's been a lot of sites that have been able to kind of grow their wings and actually grow at a rate that feels a little bit more sustainable. So it's awesome to see this stuff, and it's been great catching up with you, Sam.
Yeah, I know it's been great catching up, Jeremiah. It's been a while besides Slack chat. So again, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and where can people read your stuff? What's the URL? Where are you on Twitter?
Yeah, so definitely, check us out, www.theblazingmusket.com. You'll find all of our stuff there, including, we also do cover the U.S. national teams and, have Copa America coverage as well. But you can follow us on Twitter at Blazing Musket. Not going to lie, don't really use it that much. That's Twitter for you. You can find me on Twitter at Sam_Minton22. And then also, because Dolan will get mad at me if I don't mention it, check out our Instagram, The Blazing Musket, for all your content needs.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sam. Thanks for catching up. And I'm Jeremiah Shan. This is No Sadietes, and we will catch you next time.
We love you. Let's win another one.